Peace, 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 peace. Happy Holy Friday. Welcome back to our BBT Book Club readings. Tonight I'm your host, Nobumoso L. And again, this is our Burning Bush Tabernacle BBT Book Club. And we have a few sponsors. One, first and foremost, My PDF Books. Books with a Z. We also have bindedbooks.com, Herbs of Mayat, Morsachi brand, we welcome you all to come check out our websites, patronize the plethora of books and literature and documents that we have in our catalogs. But tonight, we're going over a book entitled The Real Indian is the Negro, aka the Blackamoor. This is one of the many books from our library. You could check out many of our other topics on this site, mypdfbooks.com. For reading funds the mental. And again, a few of our sponsors, bindedbooks.com, moorishhaberdasher.com for all your cultural regalia from head to toe, suits, fezzes, kufis, men's and women's clothes and shoes, and so much more. We have musical talent sponsored by BH Bay Music. We have herbal remedies and herbal teas and books on herbal remedies and so much more. Mayat Sons, Herbs of Mayat, Divinely Prepared Tea of Teas. So we welcome you all to come check out our platforms. We are the Burning Bush Tabernacle, Science Temple and School. And this is our Friday Holy Day reading. We welcome you to check us out on Saturday and Sundays where we do workouts at 12 noon on our Facebook platform. And then we have classes in the evenings on Saturday and Sundays. And we really welcome you all to come check us out, tap in, participate, come with questions, come with your notes, come with your notepad, and so subscribe. BBT Science Temple. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitch. But with no further ado, I will jump on this book topic that we have. It's called The Real Indian is the Negro, aka the Blackamoor. In this document you see in front of me, It's just some geographical proof that the real Indian is the Negro, aka the Blackamoor. This is the oldest body found in America, is that of the Negroid, named Lucy. This is an ancient Kufic script, was employed for the Arabic language before the modern Arabic came into general use. This example dates from approximately 700 AD and occurs in Nevada, USA, where it was mistaken for Mara Indian markings of about 1000 BC. It is actually a religious text and reads Nabi, Allah, Muhammad. Allah's prophet is Muhammad. It was probably cut in the stone, cut in the rock as part of the permanent school lessons of the Muslim settlers of the Southwest. And this is a sample of the works of Saga America by scholar Barry Fell, a European who tells a lot of the ancient American truth of the Negro or so-called black man in the Americas before enslavement. And this is the origin of Kufic, or the angular style of Arabic script. Is traced back to about 100 years before the foundation of Kufa, 17H to 638 CE, to which town it owes its name because of the development there. The Qara, called Kufic script, is the earliest Qara, so-called Arabic script, and it is related to the family of Muhammad through Ali, Fatima, and Bilal. Bilal's descendants moved through Africa to West Africa, which is present-day Morocco, and across the seas to the Americas, and left these inscriptions in Nevada at a school established there. The Arabic script, Khat, is one which is now known as Kufic. From it evolved all the present pens. The purpose of this writing is to provide the reader with some of the most important secret histories directly related to Black people in America that pertain directly to the subject and discussion of reparations and restoration. The forbidden ideal in America is what? It is never to allow our nation, Black people, to know we are indigenous to this land. Yes, we were and are indigenous nation. This is the history we have not known. This writing is designed to be a study tool and to spark an interest in further scholarly studies on our indigenous past and its connection to the reparations and restoration movement. The records of our past in America are ancient and very real. They are prior to any settlement of Europeans who verify this in their records. Negroes, as the original Indian, proof in the Jesuit letters. The book, Africa and Native Americans, by Jack Forbes, paints a very different picture of history than what most of us were taught about the origins of Black people in the Western Hemisphere. We were taught that Black people came from Africa as slaves, that the Red Indian was the true Native American, and that white people took Black slaves from Africa and stole the land of the Red Indian. This story is nothing but a giant fiction, a novel made up by white historians to deceive the masses about the original history and peoples of the Americas. Jack Forbes used the letters of Jesuit missionaries to prove that Negroes or Blackamoors were the first Americans, and in fact were the black and olive-toned people found in the Western Hemisphere. Commenting from the Jesuit letters on the appearance of the Native Americans, Forbes states, for example, in 1519, it was said of the Brazilians that is, they are not black or white, but of olive color. But the same writer remarked that the Brazilian canoemen he saw were so black that they could have been taken for sailors on the Sea of Styx in hell. The authors continue his comments on the appearance of the natives in North America from the Jesuit letters. In 1524, the Carolina Coast people were said to be of dark color, not much unlike the Ethiopians. The term Negro and Indios were used interchangeably to describe the natives in the journals of early missionaries, who could not have possibly been referring to Africans. From 1549 through 1565, the letters of the Jesuit missionaries in Brazil, usually addressed to colleagues in Portugal or Spain, frequently refers to the Americans as Negroes. In April of 1549, Manuel de Nobrega, the leader of the Jesuits, addressed a letter from Bahia to Simeon Rodrigues in Lisbon, in which he refers to the Portuguese in Brazil as living in sin because they have many negras and lots of children by the said black women. Thus, the Jesuit fathers called the American women living with Portuguese men negras, a term which, according to Lelite, could not have denoted people from Africa, because in 1549 there were few or no African women in Bahia. Nonetheless, Norbega uses the word Indio when Africans are referred to in the Jesuit letters. They are always called Negros da Guinea, blacks of Guinea, to distinguish them from Negros de Terra, blacks of the land or Americas. A very interesting letter is one prepared by Dos Meninos do Coligo de Jesus or Jesus da Bahia. This is by young Americans studying in the school. Diogo Tope Namba, Pereira Mangeta, and Quantia, although probably edited by a Jesuit. This may represent the first letter written by Americans in a European language from Brazil. In it, they refer to an American leader, El Grito, as a Negro and to other natives as Negroes. We find, for example, El Grito, who is a Negro, very well known and feared among them, and that El Grillo es negro muy grave. El Grillo was at the same time an Indi pagan and a friend of the Portuguese. In August 1552, Nobrega wrote from Bahia, South America, to Lisbon, Portugal, referring to the native peoples as Negroes. In May 1554, Antonio Blaques from Porto Seguro wrote to the Jesuits of Coimbra that he was preaching to the Americans called Negroes. He also referred to the Negroes and Los Mamlacos des la Tierra as pupils. The editor notes that by Negroes and Negras he meant Indios and Indias. The history, as recorded by their own white hands, bears witness that the black people are the indigenous and first Americans. American stemming from the intercourse of Vespucci and Columbus with indigenous blacks in Central America, the Amura. The use above, the Mamlukoks, to describe the Negroes, which stems back to the Kara Algonquin Arabic word Mamluk, also shows the indigenous Moorish presence in the Americas. This history spanned from the first encounters of the Europeans with our ancestors to the establishment of the United States of America and the Revolutionary War period. Here are some images to show what these first Americans looked like. The Dutch artist John Verhelst painted these paintings of the so-called Mohawk chiefs who visited London in 1710. The paintings were housed in Kensington Place. Kensington, which is an area in Philadelphia named after the palace, held the original name, Sheikh Amexem, meaning the black spiritual priest of God, and Sachem, Aksum, the original name of the Mohawks, is Kanikan, which resembles Canaan, ancient Israel, or the Phoenicians. The center picture is the chief of the Cree Confederacy, Tomo Chichi and members of his nation in England in 1736, having intercourse with James Oglethorpe, then the proprietor of the colony of Georgia. And if you look real close at this image, you can see the different indigenous people, some in traditional garb, some in modern, some in the English prototype European. As you see, this young boy on the bottom. The language of the Indians, aka Negroes, Algonquin, and Arabic are essentially the same language, which goes back to Medu Neter, the ancient Kemetic hieroglyphics. And this shows a comparison. The ancient Arabic script and vocabulary of the Algonquin Indians. This is by Barry Fell, a known scholar at the Agrazi Museum of Harvard University. While examining the Algonquin materials in the Peabody Museum collection at Harvard University, my attention was drawn by Mr. Joseph Germano to an old birch bark manuscript labeled as the Cree origin, CREE, carrying two horizontal lines of script, letters in black. The script I was mystified to observe is that of the ancient Arab city of Palmyra in Syria, a rival of Rome, totally destroyed by the Emperor Aurelianus in 272 AD. The script found on the steles in the ruins of Palmyra was deciphered in modern times, and it seems inconceivable that any Cree Indian could have become acquainted with it a century ago. When the birch bark text was written, I therefore made an investigation of the matter. And this image showing the Arabic forms, the modern, the form by the Palm Marine, which is 2nd century AD. And it compares it with the Cree natives. And then you have the modern Arabic. The Palmyrene, 2nd century AD, and the Cree. Note, Arabic SH is pronounced in modern Algonquin as CH. Next, the Nanticoke Moors and Lenape people. The Lenape and Nanticoke Moors, the chief tribe of the Wabanaki Confederacy of Moors, was the Delaware of William Penn, Eyewitness Accounts of Lenape Nanticoke Moors. The first detailed description of the Delawares is in the letter from William Penn to the Committee of the Free Society of Traders in 1683. The first detailed description of the Delawares is in a letter from William Penn to the Committee of the Free Society of Traders in 1683. He wrote, "For their persons, they are generally tall, straight, well built, and of singular proportion. They tread strong and clever, and most walk with a lofty chin of complexion, black, but by design, as the gypsies in England. They grease themselves with bear's fat, clarified, and using no defense against sun or weather. Their skin must be swarthy." And there's even a college in America called Swarthmore, just to note. And this source is William Penn to the Committee of the Free Society of Traders in 1683. Next is an image of Chief Tamanu, or Chief Tammany, the Blackamoor chief of Turtle Island, Shakamexum, which is modern-day Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is now named after William Penn. As you can see in this image, the chief, or the sheikh, is standing on a turtle with a five-pointed star. The turtle was very significant to indigenous people. A lot of mystical and symbolism in that animal. Sons of Tammany, aka Sons of Liberty. Worship a Moorish chief. Sir, as all nations have for 7 centuries pathed, adopted from great preferenage, remarkable for his virtues and love for civil and religious liberty, as their tutarle saint, and annual affimble on fixed day to commemorate him, the natives of this flourishing province, determined to follow laudable an example, for years have adopted a great warrior, sachem, and chief named Saint Tammany, a faint friend to our forefathers, to the popular saint of this province, and have hereto, on the 1st of May, done the honors to the memory of the great and celebrated personage. And for the same purpose, you are required to meet the children and associated sons of Saint Tammany on Saturday next, and Hoff and Mr. James Byron to dine together and do lunch. Charitable plans for the relief of all as shall then be agreed on. And this is definitely Old English. This was a letter speaking on Saint Tammany, the indigenous man that they hailed as their saint of this town in this area of Pennsylvania. The three branch system was copied from the Moors, so called Delaware, Lenape, Nanticoke Moors of America. Anami, or executive, or chief enforcers. Munasi, judicial, interpreters. Ana Lakatuga, legislative, the 50 women oral law traditions. Because they always told us that Native Americans, the myth was that they had no laws, they were lawless, they were the savage. But clearly, there's evidence that these tribes had government, had structure. To continue, Chief Blackhawk, or Maka Tamesh Shekan. Chief Blackhawk was chief of the Sauk. His birth date is not known. The name Blackhawk is reminiscent of the Black Hawk or falcon of Kemetic tradition, representing Heru or Horus, the resurrected son of Osiris, the anointed one. Blackhawk was born Ma-ka-tam-me-she-kia. Mashikcha is the Hebrew word for Messiah. Literally means the anointed. As we can see, this is a part of his name. His last public appearance was ironically July 4th, 1837, a special day in ancient Moorish, Israelite, and Egyptian culture in respect to astronomical science. His attire in this painting is very Moorish in tradition. Blackhawk was a terror for the whites in the 1800s and is a part of the legacy of Black people who have been written off under Red Indian history and disassociated from Black people as their lineal ancestors, of which they are. The resemblance to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is strikingly similar. The United States, allegedly for the purpose of exploring the unknown territories from the western edge of the colonies to the Pacific. The true intention was to spy on the indigenous Black people who were in America prior to the European invasion and colonization. Captain Meriwether Lewis and Lieutenant William Clark of the United States Army used a Black man named York, who was also the son of Yusuf bin Ali, along with a native woman named Sesone Sagawiya, found on the Millennium edition of the dollar with her son, John Baptiste Charbonnet, to be their interpreters as they gathered intelligence. And you can see this in the book Return of the Ancient Ones, which we have as well. If you would like a copy, it's by Empress Tiara Verdersi of the Washita. And that book reports Lewis and Clark documented everything in sight: the weather, the plants, the rocks, the minerals found, and the people by tribe, by habits, by color, by warlike activities. And it was documented a bushy head tribe who did not like the red man or the white man. The black bushy head Washitas. Now, please explain why history did not make us aware of this important fact. It was because they went to spy on the Washitas, a people that the good old United States had signed to be their protectorates over their rights, their land, and their property. And again, we offer this book, The Return of the Ancient Ones, and the people of the Washita are still known in Louisiana till this day, also known as the Mound Builders, not just Louisiana, but throughout the Americas. John Sibley reports in the Lewis and Clark documents, Choctaw, there are rambling hunting parties of them to meet with all over Louisiana. They are at war with the Kaludis and liked by neither the red nor the white people. This is in April 5th, 1805. To the right is Mahaksa, another chief with an Aramaic or Hebrew name. Mahaksa means the one with man horns, as the painting shows, and it represented his chiefdom. He and his father were recorded to have been in 18 battles with the United States and never lost one. He and his father were allies of the Black Hawk, or Ma-ka-ta-mi-shi-kia. He traveled with his father to Washington, D.C. in 1824 to meet with Presidents John Quincy Adams. The Secretary of State was Henry Clay. These two, Adams and Clay, were later ordered by Abdur Rahman ibn Hisham to release Abraham ibn Saudi, the Prince of Slaves, in 1828. Abraham had been touring all over the West, speaking with these chiefs about the laws that were being used to free him under the Moorish status. In 1840s, the government made many treaties with Native Americans and land deeds in Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Kansas. John Quitman and Eliza Tunica, the father and mother of Noble Drew Ali, among many other family members, were a part of these transactions and interactions. After the Lewis and Clark spy mission in the United States brought 59 European families into the Louisiana Territory under the guard of the United States Army. The military poisoned the water supply with the intent of murdering off the original indigenous black population. They brought their school curriculums as they enslaved and murdered the black population, making claims that they, the indigenous peoples, were fugitives from justice under constitutional law and were European property from Africa. However, the people did not consider themselves by nationality or status as Africans until after this was bred into them. I'll read that again. However, the people did not consider themselves by nationality or status as Africans until after this was bred into them. The indigenous people in Africa did not originally call themselves Africans. They were of Ta Mari, or were Moors, or Moors. This word African is a word of the white colonizer. There is evidence of this deceptive activity to falsify our status that is undeniable. It was a part of a plan to wipe out our indigenous history in America. The names like Tunica and Washita were turned into Turner and Washington. Wars with the Moors. In 1752, so-called French and Indian Wars were wars between the Moors, Black Knights Templar families, and the Aboriginal Moors versus British colonists in Great Britain. In 1776, the Sons of Tammany allied with the Moors to fight against the British colonists in Great Britain. Some of the British colonists infiltrated the Moors and Sons of Liberty, aka Sons of St. Tammany, in order to overthrow the Moors. They were people like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Andrew Hamilton, and Benjamin Franklin. Moors titled Negroes by United States. Statements from General Thomas Jessup. And we have a Jessup, Maryland. This, you may be assured, is a Negro, not an Indian war. And if it be not speedily put down, the South will feel the effects of it on their slave population before the end of the next season. Major General Jessup, June 1837, in American States Paper, Military Affairs, cited Kenneth W. Porter, the Negro on the American Frontier, New York, 1971. If the war be carried on, it must necessarily be one of extermination. We have, at no former period of our history, had to contend with so formidable an enemy. No Seminole proves false to his country, nor has a single instance ever occurred of a first-rate warrior having surrendered. Throughout my operations, I have found the Negroes the most active and determined warriors, and during the conference with the Indian chiefs, I ascertained they exercised an almost controlling influence over them. The Negroes ruled the Indians. Many of the original Black inhabitants began to flee from the Western Territory, and many inhabitants sought refuge in Florida, and some went further west to California and mingled with other unaffected indigenous populations. In 1816, a U.S. colonel named Duncan Clinch led an army into Florida to destroy what was called the Black Fort, or Fort Negro. Colonel Duncan Clinch led an army of Red Creek mercenaries and a U.S. Army unit into Florida, destroyed Fort Negro. And you can see this in a book called The Black West by William Katz. The explosion killed almost all of its Black and Red warriors and 200 women and children. The few warriors were led back to the United States and slavery. In his initial orders, General Jackson had asked that they not only destroy the fort, but return the stolen Negroes and property to their original owners. But the question remains, did these aboriginals see themselves as slaves, foreigners, or property of the Europeans, as Africans, Negroes, or colored people? No. In Colonel Duncan Clinch's report of the battle at Fort Negro, the first U.S. invasion of Florida, The information provides facts to the contrary. Colonel Clinch report reads, Fort Negro, 1816. In the evening, a deputization of chiefs went into the fort and demanded its surrender, but they were abused and treated with the utmost contempt. The black chief heaped much abuse on the Americans and said he had been left in command of the fort by the British government and that he would sink any American vessel that should attempt to pass it and would blow up the fort if he could not defend it. The chief also informed me that the Negroes had a red flag and that the English Jack was flying over it. The question that must be answered is, were these people former slaves? What was the purpose for flying the two flags that they were flying? Slaves do not have flags. A flag represents a nation. What nations did they represent? There were cannons in use at Fort Negro. It is a well-known fact in history that the cannon was developed by the Moors in North Africa and Spain. The Moors had not only made the fire stick, as mentioned above, but even cannon forged from wrought iron. The two flags represented Great Britain and the indigenous Moorish Empire. They represented a nation of indigenous Moors. This is the same Islamic empire in the east that Abu Bakr, brother of Mansa Musa, was under when he brought 400 ships to America in 1311 AD. It is this flag that the chief was flying at the Black Fort in Florida in 1816. Was there a continuous Moorish connection from 1311 with arrival of Moors from the east that is documented in Africa and America until 1816? The documented dates for the presence of contemporary Eastern Moors go as far back as 700 AD. As we have shown with the inscriptions found from an ancient Nevada school bearing the name of Muhammad as the Prophet of Allah. In the book entitled The Holy Quran, Circle 7, prepared by Noble Ali, asked the question, what kind of flag is the Moorish flag? It is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. The Moorish flag, as presented by Noble Ali, there is an unverified story that George Washington took down the original Moorish Islamic flag in America and locked it in a safe at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. It was allegedly a part of his efforts to destroy any knowledge of Islam amongst the black people in the budding American nation. Allegedly, it was not retrieved until Noble Ali was given the flag by high decree, Shriners, in 1920s. The Moorish flag was actually dismantled in 1816 from Fort Negro by Colonel Duncan Clinch and General Andrew Jackson. The star was added by the colonizing French authority to the Moorish Sharifian flag in Morocco in November 17, 1915. After France's colonial occupation began. Before this period, it was a completely red flag. It represented the Muslim or Moorish or Moors of the Maghreb, West Africa, and the Americas, who were traveling back and forth from Africa to America, who were established as indigenous to both lands. Many of the Maroons, who were amongst the natives, were called Seminoles, were Muslims, and were Moors, who had an ancient presence in America. The chief of this fort, called Fort Negro, was a man of Mande descent. The Mande were and are West African Muslims. The Mande group founded the medieval empires of Ghana and Mali. They include the Bambara, Dayula, Malinke, Mande, Dogon, and Sinke. The chief of Fort Negro during the invasion of Colonel Clinch was named Abraham. His birth name, Sonufe Tusnuge, which meant Swanee warrior, and has been associated with the Swanee River in Florida. The Moorish Mande, Arabic word for Sonufe, means powerful spirit, and Tusnuge means warrior. This chief, who has an Moorish heritage like most of the Maroons in Florida, was not a former slave. His descendants went back to indigenous people. Abraham served as an interpreter for the Seminoles and as legal counsel for Himbaha Miko, or John Jumper, and Holata Miko, Chief Billy Bowlegs. Hima Miko was the Seminole chief. His brother, Holata Miko, was also a chief. Abraham served as a representative on their trip to Washington, D.C., to negotiate a treaty with the United States government in 1813. And this is an image to show these melanated Moorish indigenous people. Sonufe Tusnuge, also known as Abraham, was a Maroon, or a Mu, amongst the Seminoles. He was their chief legal counsel and interpreter. It was he who was at Fort Negro in 1816, flying the Moorish flag of the Islamic empires. This is the famous cherry tree that was chopped down. Abraham soon moved west to Oklahoma, and Chief Hilate Miko and Chief Himaka Miko disappeared in the Everglades. This was the start of the Penn's secret society and other secret societies amongst the Cree and Cherokee, Saragi. These are the societies that later developed into the ancient Egyptian Arabic orders of nobles of the Mystic Shrine and the Moorish Science Temple of America. So what is the connection to the Americas in modern time and history and the efforts of our greatest teachers to reacquaint us with this marvelous and most useful history? As witnessed through his activity, Noble Drew Ali had to be very aware of these histories and began to implement repair on our people by repairing the root of our people through a knowledge of self, as he knew at the time. the great work continued in the Nation of Islam. So this is very powerful historical information. And right there, I will stop. We're about at the hour mark. Appreciate all who tapped in and tuned in. Again, if you want any of these books, you can reach out to us directly. You can email me at herbsofmayat@herbsofmayat.com. You can DM me at Mayat Sons on Instagram. But again, this is life-changing history and a full understanding with source material that is undeniable from European and indigenous scholars. And we welcome y'all to come and check out, get these books from us, because the truth has no sides. And again, you can get these books from mypdfbooks.com. That's My PDF Books with a Z. You can check out Mayat Sons, Divinely Prepared Tea of Teas. Also have many of these books and adding more. We also welcome you to go to bindedbooks.com for a plethora of books that you can compare to Amazon prices that are very rare out-of-print books on this topic and many more. For any cultural garb, drip, suits, shoes, fez, turban, kufis, men's and women's clothing, fitness gear. You can also check Moorish Haberdasher for Mayat Sons products. We have tea mugs and tank tops and t-shirts. Last but not least, we have BHB Music, which is putting this content in a musical form. As I said, you can check out MoorishHaberdasher.com. We welcome you all to come tap in. We do classes every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. If you'd like to donate to the teachings or join us live for class, reach out to us on any of these platforms. Again, my personal email is maatsons@gmail. That's mayatsons@gmail. But with that being said, thank you for joining. Look forward to the next Friday BBT Book Club. Peace, love, and light.
mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z.